Hey everyone, and welcome back to That Woman podcast. Today, we're diving into a hard topic. It's a hard topic to talk about, and will more than likely stir up a lot of emotions. Today, we're going to talk about forgiveness. There is so much to talk about when it comes to forgiveness, and I can't do it all in one episode. So, I will actually be breaking this down into two parts. Part one will be all about forgiving others, which we're going to talk about today. And part two will be all about forgiving yourself. And that will be going out tomorrow. All right. So, for all of you out there, the moment I said that we're going to talk about forgiveness, if you made a face, if you were like, "Ah, really? That's what we're talking about today?" If you felt yourself get a little tense, just a little tense when I said that, I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath and just clear your mind. We're going to go into this with an open mind and an open heart. And if you're ready, let's jump on the topic of forgiving others. Some wounds cut deep, and some betrayals leave scars. And sometimes the pain feels too big to even consider letting go. But I need you to hear this. Forgiveness is not about excusing what happened. It's about freeing yourself from what's been holding you hostage. And I know this isn't easy. But stick with me because we're going to break this down in a way that brings real healing. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about forgiveness is that when you decide to forgive someone, that means that you are saying, hey, what you did, that's okay. It wasn't a big deal. But that's not what forgiveness means. And forgiveness also doesn't mean that you're excusing someone's behavior. It doesn't mean that you are pretending that it didn't hurt. And it definitely does not mean that you are required to rebuild some form of relationship with whoever hurt you or whoever continues to hurt you. Forgiveness really means that you are releasing the hold that pain has on your heart. And I know that this is hard. It is really hard because our pain is real. And some of you listening have been lied to, you've been cheated on, abandoned, manipulated, or deeply wounded by people who were supposed to love you. And you might be thinking, Vanessa, you are asking me to forgive them, forgive him, forgive her after all the hurt that they have caused me? No, that's impossible. No way. But I'm not the one asking you to forgive. Jesus is calling us to it. And guess what? It's not for them, not for them, but for us. I want to take us to a passage in the Bible. If you have a Bible close to you or you're at home right now listening, I would really encourage you to follow along with the scriptures that I read out. If you don't have a Bible, that's not a problem. But I'm going to take us to Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 to 22. Peter asked Jesus, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? Jesus replies, I tell you not 7 times, but 77 times. So, does this mean that we're going to forgive somebody up to 77 times and after that, tough luck? Not exactly. When Jesus said this to Peter, he wasn't saying it in a literal sense. He didn't literally mean that we are forgiving 77 times and that's it. This number is meant to be symbolic. And in other words, what he was saying is you're going to keep forgiving. And I know what you might be thinking right now. What if they don't deserve for me to forgive them after what they did? What if they've never even expressed any sort of remorse or have shown me that they're sorry? How am I supposed to forgive them then? But here's the hard truth that we all need to acknowledge. Jesus forgave us before we ever apologized. On the cross, as he was being crucified, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's in Luke 23:34. So if Jesus could forgive in the middle of his suffering, then we should also do the same. Not because it's easy, but because not forgiving chains us to that very thing we want to be free from. Ever since my kids were smaller, anytime that they would get into an argument or get into a fight, or somebody would say something really mean that would hurt the other, I would sit them down and talk to them about the importance of apologizing and forgiving. I would explain to them that there's a huge danger when it comes to holding resentment and what it can do to you. An analogy that I would use is that holding on to resentment and choosing to not forgive someone is like drinking poison. Nothing's going to happen to the other person, but you are hurting yourself in many ways by choosing to drink that poison. It steals your joy, it keeps you stuck, and the worst part, it keeps you spiritually blocked from fully experiencing God's grace, from fully experiencing true peace in your life. In Matthew 7, verses 1 to 2, it says, Stop judging that you may not be judged. For as you judge, so will you be judged. And the measure with which you measure will be measured out to you. That's, what it says right there. The measure with which you measure will be measured out to you. That's deep. That's a wake up call right there. And it means that forgiveness isn't optional. It's necessary, not just for our healing, but for our own relationship with God. So we've talked about why forgiveness is so important. It frees us, it reflects God's love, and it aligns our hearts with His. But now the question is, how do we do it? How do we actually forgive? Especially when it feels like the person who hurt us doesn't even deserve it. Forgiveness is one of those things that sounds great in theory, but it really does feel impossible to do when you're right there in the thick of the hurt. But here's the good news. Forgiveness isn't something we have to do on our own. God gives us the tools and the grace to walk through it. So here are 3 ways that we can start. Number 1, pray for them. Yep, I said it. Pray for them. I warned you guys at the beginning this is going to be a hard topic. And I can just see some of you right now rolling your eyes, maybe even letting out an evil cackle like Mother Gothel and Rapunzel, just saying, Vanessa, you're nuts. If you think I'm going to pray for someone, you're crazy. Praying for the person who has hurt you, I know feels unnatural and it even feels unfair, doesn't it? But that's exactly why it's so powerful. I'm going to encourage you to take some time and dive into Luke chapter 6 when you can. It's such a powerful chapter filled with the kind of truth that's going to really challenge us. But I want to focus on just a few verses where Jesus lays out the Beatitudes. Those are the blessings that come when we live the way that he calls us to. So in Luke 6:27, Jesus says, But I say to you who are listening, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. He doesn't just stop there. He goes on to say, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do the same. But love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Wow. I mean, Jesus doesn't sugarcoat it, does he? He's calling us to live in a way that's so counter to what the world teaches us today. And yet, it's all laid out so clearly for us. Love your enemies, bless those who curse you, forgive when it feels impossible. This is the truth he's calling us to live by. It's hard, yes, but it's also the key to the blessings, the freedom, and the joy that only He can give you. And like I said earlier, you praying for your enemy or for the person who hurt you isn't excusing what they did. It's about releasing your heart from the chains of bitterness. It's about no longer drinking that poison that's causing you even more harm. When you pray for someone who hurt you, you're inviting God into the situation and asking Him to work on their heart and to also work on yours. But you have to be patient. Be patient with yourself because forgiving is not going to happen overnight either. I'm not saying that. In fact, it might take you a while, it might take a long time. And I know that it can also feel scary. You might also feel scared to forgive because it means that you are having to then open up old wounds and expose them, not to anyone else necessarily, but just to yourself. And that's a scary thought. But I want to invite you to do it slowly. Maybe you can begin by just having that open conversation with God. You can say, Lord, I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this, but I am asking you to bless them because you asked me to. It's very hard for me, God. This is really hard. You know my heart, and you know how hard it is for me to let go of this hurt. But I also don't want to hurt anymore. Help me to forgive so that I can experience your love and your peace. You have no idea how much good God can do with a prayer like that. A prayer that's honest and it's vulnerable, but it comes from the heart. He honors even the smallest step of obedience. And over time, as you keep bringing this person or the situation to Him, you might find that your heart begins to soften. And that brings us to step 2. Ask God to soften your heart. Forgiveness starts with the heart, and if we're being honest, we know our hearts are stubborn. As humans, it's very natural for us to resist change, to resist anything that's different and uncomfortable. When someone hurts us, the natural response is to build walls, to protect ourselves from getting hurt again. But what we don't realize is that those walls can also block God's healing and peace from even reaching us. So ask God to do what only He can do, and that's to soften your heart toward the person who hurt you. God knows our heart better than we know ourselves. You don't have to lie to God about how you truly feel. He knows it. In your heart, He knows that if you don't have that in you yet to forgive someone, bring that to Him. Be honest with Him. God, I don't want to forgive. I feel angry. I feel hurt. I feel betrayed. But I also don't want to carry this bitterness anymore. Help me to let it go. God isn't asking you to pretend like that pain didn't happen. He's asking you to trust Him with your pain. Ezekiel 36:26 says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. When you invite God into the process of forgiving, He can transform your heart in ways you never thought possible. And that leads us to the final step, which is to release your hurt into God's hands. So here's the truth I want to share that changed my entire perspective on forgiveness. When you think about forgiveness, it doesn't mean that you are letting them off the hook. Hey, you're forgiven, all cool. we're square, let's move on, easy peasy. No, it means that you are handing them over to God. When we hold on to anger and resentment, it's like you're trying to carry that weight of justice on yourself. And that's not our job. In Romans 12:19, God says, "It is mine to avenge. I will repay." When you are choosing to forgive, you are choosing to let go of that need for revenge or payback. And you are trusting God to deliver justice. God will deal with that person or that situation in his own way and in his own timing. And just to clarify, I'm not telling you to ask God, "God, please punish this person and teach them a lesson." No, that's not what I'm saying, because that's not letting God handle it. That's still you wanting to be in control and telling God how to do his job. Remember, this doesn't mean that you have to trust the person again, and it doesn't mean that you even have to let them back into your life. Forgiveness doesn't erase boundaries. That doesn't mean, hey, this person did something so awful to me, I'm going to forgive them, but I'm also going to invite them back in to do it again. No. What it does is that it frees you from carrying the burden of their actions. I want us to all do a little exercise where we're going to envision something. If you are able to close your eyes, then I want to invite you to close your eyes. And if not, then that's okay. You can just listen. But I want you to picture yourself standing before God. You are standing before your Maker, before our Father, and standing right next to you is the person that hurt you. And now I want you to envision yourself putting your hand on their back. Okay, please just go with me on this. Don't try to fight it. Just picture that you are gently putting your hand on their back. And now I want you to turn to God and you are going to say, "Lord, I can't fix this. And I can't carry this hurt anymore. I'm giving it to you. This anger and this resentment, I'm letting it go and I'm giving it to you, Lord. I'm putting this in your hands. Please take it." Now you're going to take your hand off of their back and you're going to start to back away. It is no longer in your hands now. You are choosing to let go and leave it in God's hands. You can open your eyes now if you had them closed. And I just want to remind you, this is a process. Forgiveness, it's a process. Some days it might feel easier than others. And there are some other days where you feel like you're going to go right back to where you started. And that's okay. Just keep bringing it back to God, step by step, and let Him work in your heart. It's not about what the other person deserves. It's about what God wants for you. Peace, freedom, and a heart that's open to His love. So here's your challenge this week. Ask God to reveal any unforgiveness in your heart. What do you need to release? What pain have you been holding on to for too long? Write it down. Bring it before God and ask Him to help you start the process of letting go. Because He created us to be free. Thank you so much for joining me this week. And I also thank you for opening up your heart and opening up your mind. I know that this was not an easy topic. If this episode spoke to you today, send it to a friend who you think might need to hear it. And don't forget to check your inbox for today's challenge. That's going to be going out tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll also be diving into part 2 of our forgiveness topic. My name is Vanessa, and as always, remember to keep on striving to be that woman you can be proud of. I'll see you guys tomorrow.